At this time, we'll call to order the regular meeting of Plan Commission. This is September 23rd, 2024. Callie, roll please.
Mayor Boyd,
I'm here.
Citizenmember Bush,
Here.
Alderperson Gantz,
Here.
Alderperson Hanson,
Here.
Citizenmember Higgins,
Here.
Citizenmember Raymaker, Citizenmember Schilling.
Here.
Thank you. Citizen Member Raymaker is excused. Item 2, approval of the minutes of the August 26, 2024 Plan Commission meeting. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by me, seconded by Alderperson Gantz. Discussion or comments? Alderperson Hanson.
Just a typo on how my last name's spelled in item 7.
We were thinking you wouldn't find that, so good for you, Jonathan.
So picky.
All right.
Thank you. Anything else we have?
My nerds.
That said, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 3, public comments upon matters not on the agenda. Comments made during the public comment period shall pertain only to matters under the jurisdiction of the Plan Commission. Anyone in person or virtually have any public comments upon matters not on the agenda? If so, state your name and we'll bring you to the front table. Anyone here have anything to say on something that's not on the agenda? For the second time, any public comment upon matters not on the agenda? And for the third and final time, any public comment upon matters not on the agenda? Now's your time. All right, up next, item 4. Consideration and possible action on a 10-lot extraterritorial final plat of Little Rapids Subdivision at 1602 Torchwood Trail in Lawrence, parcels L-2279, L-2295. Is this Peter?
Yes, it does. Thank you. This is the final plat version of the subdivision, Little Rapids Subdivision. It is in the town of Lawrence. You reviewed this a couple of months back. The 10 proposed lots have not changed in their configuration. 9 of the lots on the right side are for residential uses. The larger lot on the left side is for commercial industrial use. Staff recommends approval subject to the conditions you see in your report.
Thank you. Questions, comments, motion?
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Alderperson Hanson, seconded by Brenda. Discussion or comments? Seeing there are none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 5, consideration and possible action for a zoning map amendment from MX1 Downtown Mixed Use to PI2 Campus Public and Institutional District at 221 South Broadway Street, Parcel ED-812. Peter?
Thank you. This is the institutional master plan for the Mulva Cultural Center to take it from a zoning of MX1 to a PI2 district. At the time that the Mulva Cultural Center was proposed for development in 2 site plans, which you reviewed in the year 2020 and I believe in 2022. The 2022 one might have been a staff-only review. We were under a different zoning ordinance and had different zoning categories. So MX1 was felt to be the best fit at the time. The Mulva Cultural Center would like to replace one of their signs on the west side of the building with an electronic messaging sign, and chose to go through the institutional master plan process to do that. One of the good things about doing that is it does resolve several issues where there are some nonconformances that didn't fit with the MX1 zoning district. Here's the map showing where the site is for those who are not familiar with it, just to the north of our city hall right now. And when you went through the cultural district master plan, you'll notice that we put all of the tables in 3 columns. The far right column gave you an executive summary of whether the comparable of the MX1 district to the PI2 district were exactly the same, or if there was a small difference or a significant difference. We tried to summarize that. Do note that some of them did identify that there was a change, but that's because there may have just simply been a change between the MX1 category and the PI2 category. What you see on the screen is the significant change, and the primary reason why the Cultural Center did ask for that zoning map amendment, and it does relate to that electronic messaging sign. So what you see is this arrow right here. This is where electronic message type signs in the PI2 district, or in the MX1 district, I'm sorry, are generally not permitted, but in the PI2 district, they can be written in, and that arrow towards the top is the writing of introducing the allowance for that type of a sign. Then as you move into the wall signs, already in existence is a approximately 330 square foot wall sign on the west side of the building. It is used for advertising of existing and upcoming displays at the Multicultural Center. The proposal is for that to change to this electronic messaging sign. So by the act of changing this line up above, it allows this area right here to not only be a wall sign as it is today, but it allows it to be a electronic messaging sign. Just an example for those who may not be familiar with what side is what on the building. This is the west side facing South Broadway. This is the sign area that is the topic of conversation. If we were to look at it on a site plan, the site plan is relatively complex, so thinking of north as being the top of the page, you can see here's the roundabout. City Hall would be just off the map right here. It's this area where that sign is located. This does not propose to change any of the other signs. When staff took a look at it, we did get a couple of comments back from different departments, primarily focused on the concern of an electronic messaging sign at that size and scale, perhaps being distracting to traffic on South Broadway and for traffic entering into the roundabout. So staff initially suggested perhaps extending the time sequence for changes between images on the sign to be the zoning ordinance 8 seconds expanded up to approximately 60 seconds. We did have that conversation just a couple of hours ago with the Cultural Center because that comment did come into us relatively late in the game. And they were suggesting perhaps extending it to 15 seconds, knowing that may be the amount of time it would take a car to pass that location. So somebody driving by probably would only see the sign changing once. The representative here from the Cultural Center would like to have a conversation with you about changing that time frame from 60 seconds to something shorter, like say 15 seconds or 30 seconds. In addition to just allowing an electronic messaging sign, there are supplemental regulations that are already part of our zoning ordinance. I did include this in your staff report so that you would be very familiar with them. And again, in this table, in the right column, I identified if the regulation applies to the existing situation or if it doesn't. On the right side of the screen, those are all scenarios that are in place in our zoning ordinance right now, and they would still apply for the sign. For example, the very bottom of the screen on that right side identifies that the times at which the sign has to be turned off between the hours of 10 o'clock and 6 o'clock, 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. You see item G right here. This is the brightness that the sign can be. There are different brightness levels during the daytime and during the nighttime. And then there are various other elements. None of those are proposed to change. On the left side of the screen, I did list 4 items where there are some variations, and it's mostly because this is a proposed change to an existing sign area. So for example, one of the identifications on here is that, so as you can see right here, item D, that a sign must be built perpendicular to the street. This is assuming it's kind of like a monument sign. However, in this case, the sign is actually on the wall of the building, so it will be parallel to the street. So I've identified that it is not in compliance just because of the fact it's parallel. They're asking for it to be the majority or all of the sign as an electronic messaging. So we identified that it could be 100% of the sign, not the code identified 30% of the sign. So knowing this and knowing that the petitioner would like to have a conversation regarding sign length, planning staff does recommend approval of this master plan that is included with your report, subject to any conditions that were included with the report. And I don't believe I had any. Let me double check. Oh,
15 to 8 seconds.
I did have one condition related to compliance with state and local laws.
To make that a variance, right?
And our petitioner is present in the audience and may wish to speak.
All right, thank you. How would you like to proceed? Do you want to hear from the petitioner and then get some information, or do you guys want to talk first? Alderperson Hanson?
I just have a quick
We'll go there.
question to Peter. On the on the memo, it says one significant change: exterior illuminated wall sign in the southeast corner of the building. So should that be southwest corner?
Did I put the wrong corner? Yes, you are correct. It would be the southwest.
Okay,
I apologize.
that's okay. That's all I had for now.
Very good, thank you. And I'm assuming that they're going to say the same thing. Other questions before I open this up?
Now, just
Go
for,
ahead.
for the, as far as contacting property owners, there was one comment that you received, but there haven't been any since the printing?
No, there have been no additional comments.
All right. And is it, when we're doing something like this, I mean, do we check with the police chief or the law enforcement? Just for-
One of the comments regarding traffic did come from the police chief.
It did,
So
okay.
yes, we
Okay.
did distribute this just like we would when you reviewed site plans. We sent it to that same staff distribution list.
Okay. And they were fine with it? Is that right?
The police was one of the departments that had a concern about the impact on traffic and the suggestion to extend the time frame.
So that was the solution, okay.
And it should be noted too, there's a monument sign at Foxview, because they're in the PI district right now, correct?
Correct.
And they actually have, different messaging and things like that. I'm not sure if they're adhering to the existing policy, but they do. So that would be a pretty good example, just one block away.
Right.
In that area. Other questions or comments? Alderperson Gantz?
So, staff is recommending 60 seconds, and also the police are recommending the same.
As one universal staff recommendation, that's where the number 60 is coming from.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alderperson Hanson?
I assume Public Works and Engineering were also asked for feedback, or
Correct. Correct.
do we have any other digital signs of this size in the city, especially along a major corridor?
Not that I am aware of as an electronic messaging sign that went into place in my time span here, and I don't recall one being prior to my time.
And I would reaffirm, we do not have one of this size in this specific location. We got some that are along the highway that are a little bit different, but we also don't have any buildings in our downtown that are of this unique nature either. And that's the whole purpose for the PI2 zoning district, is to allow the Plan Commission, Council, and the petitioners to create special rules, because these one-off projects are hard to anticipate into a zoning code.
I mean, if you think of some kind of comparison comes to mind, think of Appleton, the PAC, where if in the downtown on College, they will have electronic messaging signs there, and that's because I'm sure it's a unique type structure, but you don't see them anywhere else, I don't think, in the downtown with businesses. So I think they treat, those type of cultural centers, performing arts centers, differently, and I'm assuming it's probably PI, but I'm not sure there. I'm not 100% sure. Just trying to draw some comparisons here. Other questions or comments? All right, I make a motion to open the meeting.
I'll second.
Motion by me, seconded by Brenda. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Marv, you want to come up, give us your name and address? He's going to make sure the microphone is on.
Great. Thank you. Marvin Wall, 1470 Midway Road, De Pere. First off, thank you, Peter, for all the work on putting together this master plan. It was very helpful to go through. There's a lot to go through just for the small piece that we're looking at, but now that we have the full master plan, I think we're in a better position. The first bit of information I'd like to pass is that I just learned today that the DOT had commissioned a study on large billboards as the frequency rate and the safest turnover time for large billboards along the highway for cars going past at 70 miles an hour, and their rate was 7 seconds per turn or for a new message. And then for 60 miles an hour, it was 6, and linear on down that. They didn't get much below that because it's on a highway, so they're not going slower than that. But that's just a point of reference that I just learned today of how often those their recommended safe turn rate is. I don't have any preconceived, we want to have X seconds per, we really haven't gotten into that detail yet of how often we want to turn the signs, but we definitely don't want to have it that it's going less than the 8 seconds was a guideline that the sign company had said, and they said typically they're in the 10 to 15 second range is how they typically do that. But again, we're in a special situation here too, being close to the roundabout. So I appreciate the concern for safety there, and that's our main concern too, is to make sure that we're not distracting drivers as they go through. The one thing that the sign company did say was they didn't focus as much on the time the time between turns, but it's more the brightness is really the biggest safety factor, that it's not too bright, that is more distracting than the turnover in signs. And then the last piece, I looked at the sign down at Foxview and how often that one is turning. There was 4 messages, and it was going at approximately 3 seconds per turn. So they went in 12 seconds. They went through the 4 messages. We definitely wouldn't be going less than the 8 seconds in the code, or if we pick a different number here. So that's when Peter and I were talking today. If we went double what the 8-second turn rate would be, given our special circumstances being at a different angle to the street, plus near the roundabout is what we had talked about there. And I realized staff hasn't had a chance to talk about that either.
I'm sorry, Marv, go ahead.
That's all I had.
Okay. Now, we can do this one of 2 ways. We can directly ask him questions right here since he's there if you'd like, and that's fine. By the way, first of all, regarding the DOT, since that's the first we heard of it, it's kind of hard for us to put any validity in that one because we just don't know. Now, the Foxview sign is what we consider a monument sign, so it's how it's positioned makes it a monument sign, versus this one, which will be affixed right next to the building. So you have to actually look right if you're driving to see this thing, correct? I'm assuming that's pretty accurate.
Yes.
Okay. Questions or comments of Marv right here while he's here? Anyone have anything? Alderperson Hanson.
Just wondering, impetus behind this request. Desire, I assume, to get more messages conveyed, and then probably less work to have to when it does have to change over.
Yeah, initially when the signs were designed so that every 3 to 4 months when we changed an exhibit, then we would change the sign. But we have other items we'd like to advertise. We have different exhibits that go 8 to 12 weeks. We have the different films, the restaurant, the gift shop. There's a lot of different things that we would like to advertise there that would turn over more often. The sign that you see there is 6 panels wide. We're still intending now to take keep the 4 center sections the same, and that would be a graphic that would change over with the large exhibit, but then have 2 electronic signs on either end that would change over on whatever frequency to advertise things that turn much quicker than the 3-month large exhibit.
Oh, so let's
So
have this correct.
2/3
So
of
the middle would be the same, like we see right now.
Right.
And then the corners would have the message board. So it'd be 2 separate message
The
boards.
signage that we have right now has sharks in the middle, and then there's 2 pinker signs on the outside. So those we are looking to swap out and keep the sharks one that's there. That'll go through past Christmas. So we anticipated keeping the center portion, advertising the large exhibit, which is sharks coming up, but then putting the electronic signs on either end.
Great. And Dan, Peter, that's how it says it in there, correct? 2 separate signs?
I think it says that it can be electronic, or it could change into I don't know that we said what size it was going to be, but that's our plan right now. Is
Sure.
To have.
And we can stay open here, so go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, the way the institutional master plan was written is that it could be any portion of or the entire sign as an electronic messaging sign.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it does not distinguish it being only the 2 outer panels at this.
Would you keep the messaging on the glass that you have right now?
That could go away then too.
Okay, because that would be on the, let's get this right, it's the southwest corner, right? Southwest corner,
side.
right? Okay. All right, thank you. Other questions, comments here while we have them out there? Alderperson Hanson.
Yeah, what about on the north side of the building? Would that still stay as a fixed sign?
Yes.
Okay.
Very good, thank you. Other questions or comments? All right, Marv, thank you very much, and we'll kind of discuss some more, and you may have to come back up, we'll see, but thanks.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to go back to regular session.
I'll second.
Motion by me, seconded by Alderperson Gantz. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Additional questions, comments? Dan, Peter, anything else you want to add? So if we'd approve it as is hypothetically, we still have to address the frequency of the sign changing, correct?
If you approve it as is, it will default to a 60
60
second
second?
time pause. What Marv is asking is for that time pause to be shortened between changing of
And that shortened time is what? Is it 8 or 8 seconds?
15.
15 or
15?
30?
15.
Yeah, zoning ordinance identifies 8. Marv, I believe you said 15 would be okay. And then staff's initial suggestion, and that was prior to having a conversation with Marv, was 60 seconds.
All right, we got a range here, people. So I assume we can find some compromise somewhere. Let's say, for example, we do this and approve it, and then we check it out, see how things are going. It could be altered and changed, I assume. Dan?
Well, you're establishing the master plan, so this will act as its own ordinance by itself. So what's here is what will guide staff whenever
Moving forward for anything
moving
else.
forward. When you talk about moving from 60 to 15, I think some of the police department's concerns were about 60, were if that entire sign was to be one large video board, more or less, at this point. If you decide to negotiate and kind of bring things back to square, and you require that only a third of the sign be digital, moving it down to 15 potentially is a trade-off. We just have to make sure that that's written in this piece here. So if you're finding a means to do it, but I would also say if those two signs are going to be separate, meaning one on each end,
They're both unique signs in themselves.
changing at the same time though, so that
Yeah.
otherwise we're
That's
potentially
just going to
changing.
bring it up because you're going to look at one thing, you're going to see it, and you're going to see the two different messages.
So changing, sequence of changing has to happen at the same time if there's two separate signs.
Right.
Thing. So those are a couple things to think about.
All right. Questions, comments?
Me.
Alderperson Gantz.
So are you saying this is setting a precedence for the next time somebody requests this,
will
that you're
be.
going to look at this case?
Well, PI2 they're meant to be one-off situations. Right now, our only PI2s in the city are St. Norbert College, and because it's a large campus with a campus master plan, potentially this one here as a master plan for a large downtown user, again, a 75,000 square foot building. And then the MSC, which is our building, our municipal service center, which is in the middle of a sort of neighborhood / business area. So we had some clarifications on some greater buffers in that one. So I wouldn't say establishing a creation of a PI2 is a precedent, because it's a standalone ordinance by itself. You're not establishing a policy by decision of site plans or changes of codes. It's establishing its own ordinance by itself. However, somebody wants to interpret that, you are not forced to say this is a precedent that we're setting.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? What I'm probably going to do here, and we can still talk more after this, I'm going to make a motion, and then we'll just kind of go from there. But I'll make a motion to approve the zoning map amendment from MX1 downtown mixed use to PI2 campus and public institutional district at 221 South Broadway Street, parcel ED-812. That's my motion. Do we have a
Second.
motion by me, seconded by Alderperson Hanson? Grant, I think you had some questions.
I was just going to say, I don't have a problem with the 15 seconds because my kids just got out of Foxview, and that sign changes a lot. I see that moving. I don't find it particularly distracting. So there's a sign a half a block away that's, kids' birthdays and this event. And I looked at it because my kids were going there, but I didn't find it distracting. And
I don't know the frequency of the time on that. Do you know the frequency
he
of the
said
time?
3 or 4 seconds.
It's pretty quick, I see it.
Yeah.
And there's certain things, now, again, we are complaint basis only, but there's certain things that I've noticed that don't comply with
They're not complying.
our ordinance. Somebody was making a complaint on it, then we would, but at this point, yeah, there's some flashing things, there's some certain things that don't meet that ordinance.
Yeah.
See it time.
The time duration prior to the sign code being rewritten was a significantly shorter time span than 8 seconds for schools. It specifically had called out a short time span of changeover for schools. So if that was, assuming it was approved under that older sign code and that they didn't just make an illegal sign, their time frequency of change probably met what the old code said. And that's where we kind of recognized that probably wasn't the best for the rest of the city, and that's when the zoning ordinance established that 8-second minimum in the standard zoning ordinance.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Do we need a separate motion for the duration thing, the 15-second thing? Or can we include it in the original motion and alter it?
That's in your motion. However you decide to make the change, and that one is just, you just noted in your motion if you decide to make the change.
So I'd make a motion then too to go from 60 seconds to 15 seconds, if I have that correct, on the sign frequency.
And with the two end signs
two-thirds?
changing simultaneously.
And changing simultaneously.
Yes.
Are we requiring only a third of the sign be digital? Like Dan, he proposed that earlier.
Well, like they want.
Yeah, it was just a solution, you know, and to go to that large of a sign all at once was, that's really up to the plan commission to do. But again, if it opens a door, they potentially could go at, you know, make that change over at any given point. If you approve it as 1/3 now, as a negotiation piece, again, that's not something that has to be done. But if they wish to make that change afterwards, they would just come back for a master plan amendment. So, but again, it's up to the plan commission.
How do you want to do it, seconder?
I would prefer requiring only a third be digital.
All right, the motioner is good with that as well.
I do too. There's the electric sign in front of the Malva Family Fitness Center on campus. But I'm trying to recall like how quickly I feel like when I drive by that, and that is bright. That thing is, but I feel like it stays pretty like on something for a long time. I was just trying to, I have no idea how long that rotation is, but there's an example of an electronic sign, not obviously the size and scope of this one, but it's large and it's bright, and I was just curious.
Now, the
If
brightness.
that would have been the P, and that's also P.
The brightness is built into this approval. Yeah.
It has.
Well, it's
Yes, let me take us to that page right here. I believe it's under item G of the supplemental regulations. It identifies two brightness levels, one for daytime hours and then a second brightness level for twilight and evening hours.
Good.
Okay.
And those are maximum levels, so they can certainly be dimmer than that, but those are the maximum limits.
And the suggestion by the chief of police or whatever, the 60 seconds, what was that? That was just based on safety alone?
The concern was distraction of drivers looking to watch the sign instead of the car in front of them going into the roundabout. They did not offer a specific time at when they made their initial comment about or complaint, I should say, and until I called them back and had conversations about timing and what were they looking for, and that's when they came to a thought of 60 seconds. But as Dan said, that's assuming that the entire 330 square feet of sign is electronic messaging, not one portion of it.
Not 1/3. Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Very good, thank you. Other questions or comments? So we have everything in, I think, that we want with the motion and second. Everyone's comfortable with that?
Yes.
Everyone good
Yes.
to move forward? All right. Very good. Seeing there are no additional questions and or comments, and we have a motion and a second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, we have that. Thank you, Marv. Up next, item 6, consideration and possible action for a zoning map amendment from BP1, Business Park 1 District C Commercial District at 1302 South Broadway Street, 1314 South Broadway Street, and 860 O'Keefe Drive, parcels ED-F0103-6, ED-F0103-7, and ED-2078. Peter?
Thank you. This site is going to look rather familiar to you. Just a couple of months ago, this area was under review for a comprehensive plan amendment to change the comprehensive plan to reflect the small image clip that I have on the right side of the screen, to allow for future commercial use rather than being part of industrial park. That was approved shortly after the Plan Commission reviewed and made their approval recommendation. It was approved by Common Council. The petitioner is now back to finish the project by making a zoning map amendment request to a commercial district, and that's what this reflects. At the time you reviewed it, I believe that it was only this parcel and this parcel, the two parcels on the right side. By the time this project got to Common Council, the third parcel on the left was added. So that might be why this map looks slightly different to some of you. But staff still felt that was a good change and continues to make a approval recommendation. Subject to, and I don't believe there are any conditions with
I didn't see any
map amendment. So staff's recommendation is approval.
Thank you. Questions or comments on this item on the agenda? And I know we have some people in the back there. Are any of you here to speak or hear about this item right here? Is everyone good back there? I don't want to miss anybody. And you're here, they're the petitioner, but I'll see if they need you at all. Any questions or comments? I'd make a motion to approve the request for a zoning map amendment from BP1 Business Park 1 District to C Commercial District at 1302 South Broadway and 860 O'Keefe Drive. So that's my motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by me, seconded by Grant. Additional discussion and/or comments? Seeing there are none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thanks for coming in. Item 7, consideration and possible action for zoning map amendment from BP1, BP2, and CON, Business Park 1 District, Business Park 2 District, and Conservancy District to BP2, Business Park 2 District at 2000 Commerce Drive, Parcel ED-3103. That's going to Peter.
I'll try to explain this one without being too complicated. This is an approximate 22 to 23 acre parcel. For simplicity, I included describing the entire parcel. That's why in part of the description you see it's talking about taking the lot from a BP2 to a BP2. What happened here is there is a parcel that has multiple zonings on it, and this is an action to clean up the zoning map so that the entire parcel is one common zoning category. So I think it's better described with this image. What I did is I identified the different zoning categories. You can see BP2 is the majority of the parcel at about 18.6 acres. On the left end or the west end of the property, there is a small area of BP1, about 1.8 acres. There's a sliver of Conservancy that originally was zoned for part of the stormwater management pond that you can see in the picture at the north end. But these two areas outlined in the red dashes are really the only two areas that, if this were approved, would change in zoning category. Everything else within the black boundary of this area is already zoned BP2. So planning staff recommends approval of this zoning map amendment subject with no conditions, I believe.
I'm not sure there were any conditions, were there?
Oh,
Nope.
yeah, just identifying compliance with state and local laws.
Yeah.
So planning staff recommends approval. We do want to let you know that we did receive a number of emails and phone call regarding this subject, and the emails are included in your report, and there are public in the audience that wish to speak regarding this topic.
Very good. Thank you. Questions, comments before we move out? Alderperson Hanson, and we'll let them speak.
Yeah, Peter, the area that's currently zoned Conservancy, none of that is needed anymore for any kind of stormwater management. Is that correct?
The area that is needed for stormwater management is actually on the adjacent parcel. Let me get my mouse moving. This area right here, you can see the solid thick line. So once you're on this side, you're on a different parcel than what we're looking at. So that is the area that's needed. There is an access easement that allows the city to cross this parcel to get to that area. That access easement does not need to be zoned Conservancy in order to do that.
Okay. And I know there was a lot of kind of back and forth in the agenda, like emails, threads about buffers or kind of setbacks or screening. Just wondering how much of that is germane to the discussion tonight regarding this rezoning request?
Tonight, we don't talk about site plans and things of that nature. We strictly are talking about zoning map amendment. So we're talking about, is it in the best interest to have this be a BP2 district versus another zoning district? The threads that you're referring to were from property owners located to the north that own some city-owned parcels in this area right here. You can see they are colored in a gray tone because they are in a business park zoned category. I believe they are a BP1 category. Those parcels were sold to adjacent property owners, I believe, in 1990, so that those property owners could develop those areas with screening and landscaping and berms of that nature to provide that screening from their properties in the town of Ledgeview from the adjacent business park.
And then the question you had asked about how germane this is, so we're talking about a zoning change versus site plan, so that we want to distinguish between both of those things. Dan?
Yeah, there's an opportunity. So right now, as you're well aware and we'll discuss tonight, our site plans are posted online. So if there's ever a discussion point where somebody is challenging the public, the applicant, anybody challenging our staff reviews or our staff reports, something's in violation of our ordinance, they can then make an appeal to the Plan Commission on that one. But tonight is about the rezoning action item. We have to keep within the rules of the zoning action. And in addition to that one, I know Peter mentioned our only comment is typically subject to all state and federal local regulations because we can't place conditions on rezonings because that's contractual zoning and that's against the law. So
yeah, we're kind of bound there.
Unless you do, as I mentioned, a master plan of a PI1 or a planned development district where you establish your own standards. This is straight up a zoning code with site plan standards that are set at the site plan level and in the code. So those are the standards that they have to apply to or what it's in the code.
And regarding the site plan, it's our hope, and I think it's happening, that whoever has this property, and we know who it is working with the residents.
Yep, the applicant
to come up with solutions.
Is here tonight if there's any questions about that, as well as in addition to the public with any comments or questions.
Okay. All right, anything else that we have? I'll make a motion to open the meeting.
Second that.
Motion by me, seconded by Grant. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So hopefully the audience understands where we're at right now with this, but if anyone wants to speak, please feel free to do so. Anyone in the back like to speak? And if so, just raise your hand if you want to speak.
And I will be taking notes, so
Okay.
that way if we can catch any questions that are had after we go back into session.
Great. If you want to come up to the table right there, you're going to give us your name and address. And as just stated, you are timed on what you can say. This is different than the last one you have, but I'm not going to hold you to a time. Say what you like, and then he'll take down notes. And then when we go back to regular session, we'll get those answered, and we kind of keep going then too. So go ahead.
Mike Stoller, 2015 Ledgeview Road. I'm actually speaking for my mother that's here that lives at 566 Ravine Drive, which is affected by this property.
Thank you.
What I'm looking for, Peter, you could answer this as clarification. What we're talking about rezoning here, is it within what I'm seeing as the red line up there and then the black line? Does this affect the property, the Conservancy, the pond itself? And does it affect the strip of land that the property owners own?
Peter, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. This zoning petition does not change this gray stripe of zoning that is right here. This is a business park zoning category. that is remaining the same. That's not the topic of conversation for tonight. The area to the south of that, where you can see the pond is, this parcel right here, is zoned Conservancy and is remaining Conservancy. We are not talking about that for tonight. The only area that we are talking about is the area in this thick black line that you can see. Within that thick black line, there are 3 zoning categories: a BP1, a BP2, and a Conservancy District. The BP2 is already zoned BP2, so even though we're going through an action to change, it's just going to stay the same. The 2 areas, BP1 and Conservancy, are the 2 areas that would change.
The small strip that we can see in the red.
So by changing, we're up on your map there, it's, the letters CON towards Commerce Drive, there's a very narrow strip of Conservancy there right now. By you're changing that part of the Conservancy, does that allow the developer of that property to get closer to the property line that is owned by us residents there? How is that, or is their plan going to change from we have been given, as far as a site plan? Is that going to change the location of their driveway, the size of the building? Is it going to get any closer, or is that staying the same as to what they have?
I could address that one, Peter, if you'd like. As far as we know, and it's also included in the development agreement, there's a draft concept plan including the development agreement that was set by the Finance and Personnel Committee as well as the council, that the site plan that you see that's been put out there is the site plan that is being proposed here. This is meant to be a cleanup action because we try not to have multiple zonings on a parcel. We could have a drive on that, and that Conservancy could stay because it would be a drive access to the pond. But at this point, it's meant to be a cleanup action. And there's additional kind of nuance to here is that Conservancy zoning district didn't exist until January 1st of 2023. So that was industrial prior to this one. And we just put all of our ponds into a Conservancy zoning district because that's where we put our ponds in because they were just kind of floating out in random zoning districts. So in this case, this is a request to just bring everything into one compliance. The site plan has been pretty well vetted from an overall building footprint standpoint. Landscape materials, and that's again a conversation piece if the applicant wishes to kind of address some of those comments. But in this case, the site plan is included in the development agreement that has additional, I guess you'd say, building footprint kind of locations.
Okay. Thank you. Does that answer your question?
That takes care of it.
Okay.
All right, you're satisfied?
Yep.
With that?
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a quick question for staff. To his question, though, about Ravine Road, it doesn't go all the way to Commerce, right? So that current section of the Conservancy on the far east side, that is not abutting a road?
Yeah, everything you see in that light gray color north of the Conservancy, that was at one point purchased by the City of De Pere and then sold to one single owner. Just a point of clarification, one single owner for the consideration of $1 back in 1990, and then that was to be used as the buffer requirement for that one. So we didn't have an additional, I guess you'd say, 2 buffers. And what it did, and we actually saw this in several other locations throughout the city, was it placed the buffer control on the landowner. So they felt that they could control what they put it on top of, and they weren't relying on their neighbor to control their buffer. And so back in the 90s, there were several locations where the buffer requirements were, I guess you'd say, managed by the people who felt they wanted to control it. And that's what happened in this situation here. So everything there that was in the city, everything that's not in a shaded color is in the town.
So the light gray part on the very north end, on the far right side, the far east side, is that where Ravine Road ends? Are there any houses further, like between where it ends right now and where Commerce Drive is? If you go down a little further?
Yeah, Ravine Road ends right here, right?
Yeah, it's just, here, Peter, hand me your mouse. Yes. Yeah. So there's parcels that, it's a little bit off the screen here, but there's parcels that come down Ravine Road. And then right at the end of this kind of stopping point here, there's 2 parcels that almost are at the very end without a cul-de-sac or a hammerhead there. Those are owned, but I believe those have outbuildings on them at this point. When I look at the assessment standpoint, there isn't a large enough assessment on there to show that there's a, I guess you'd say, a living unit on there potentially, but there are outbuildings on there at this time.
Okay. All right, thanks.
While we're open right now, does anyone else want to speak, including up to the applicant? So, come on. You guys all good?
I'm happy to speak.
All right. Thank you. Just for formality, Kurt, you want to give us your name and address, and then you can address and state what you'd like?
Sure, Kurt Voss, I'm here representing Amerilex Holdings, 1300 Enterprise Drive in De Pere. So, I know that Joe, our CFO, has been in touch with some of the neighbors. I don't know if you guys were part of that meeting or not. And, certainly we want to be a good neighbor, but it's not a one-way street here, I get a little concerned about kind of a victim mentality. We're trying to do the best we can with an industrial lot. And unfortunately or fortunately, it's adjacent to a residential area. In the 1990s, it would appear you took care of, or your predecessors took care of, that buffer that is in the gray up here to give those landowners the opportunity to put whatever type of trees or berms or whatever they needed to do to block them from the industrial park. If I do the math between the edge of our property and the house is affected, it's about 100 yards, just to put that in perspective. So there's the pond, which we don't own, then there's the buffer, which we don't own, they do, and then there's the backyard leading to the house. So if you do the math, it's about 100 yards, just for perspective. So I will say that we're going to try our best, because the last thing we want to be is a bad neighbor. But on the other hand, we've got estimates in the range of $150,000 to either berm. In fact, to berm it was several $100,000 because it's a long area. So what we're going to do is look at this, as the development takes shape, and see exactly, how do we have to have the berm for the entire, width of that property. I'll say east and west here on the diagram. Maybe we need to put a few trees up. But in my view, it should be a shared effort between us. In fact, we could make the case that it should be, they should put up a berm or trees, given, that they were given the buffer area. But given the situation, we certainly want to work with you guys, just to be clear. But we want to work with you from the context of, we're both in this together, and there's got to be some shared responsibility. So I hope I wanted you guys to know that on the city council.
Thank you.
And, it's not like because we're a business, we have an unlimited amount of money either to invest in these sorts of things. We're already investing a lot of money in the development, as you guys know. So we're open to have a discussion at any time. And we're not hiding, and we want to make it a win-win.
All right.
Okay?
Thank you very much. Thanks, Kurt. While it's open, anyone else want to speak? Sure, come on up.
I'm Mary Jane Stoller. I'm at 566 Ravine Drive. I guess I have a question, and I understand the berm situation, and I think we all want to be a good neighbor too. But it's very difficult when I look out my back windows, and my house is all windows in the back, and I have to look at a driveway that's right at the edge of what he's calling where the berm would be, which is that 100 feet. I just don't understand why we have to look at semis coming how many hours a week or a day, I should say, and have the lights and the noise coming that close to us when there's other ways to bring it off. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anyone else want to speak while it's open? I'll make a motion to go back to regular session.
Second.
Motion by me, seconded by Mark. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Again, so we're clear here, we're talking about the zoning change, not as much the site plan, but I appreciate all the comments that we have. To move this forward, do we have a motion yet or not? I don't think we have a motion yet, do we?
So.
No.
All right, to move this forward, and then, and I do take Kurt and Amerilex, and I take the other businesses in the industrial parks at their word, because they generally have stuck to their word, and at least try to work with the neighbors, try to mitigate any situations they would deem not perfect for them. And we get it. We understand that full well. So I appreciate all the comments. That said, I will, at this stage, because this is all by law we can deal with, the approval of the request for a zoning map amendment from BP1, BP2, and Con Business Park Business Park 1 District, Business Park 2 District, and Conservancy District to BP2 Business Park District 2 at 2000 Commerce Drive.
I'll second.
Motion by me, seconded by Pamela. And again, my assumption is that the applicant will continue to work with the neighbors to try to remedy what they can, but that is not an order, nor is it a directive. They're doing that already. Other questions or comments? Alderperson Hanson.
Yeah, just for the record, Peter, can you just kind of clarify what, if anything, changes from going from BP1 to BP2?
The uses are what would change. So if you look in Article 7 of your zoning ordinance, there's a use table that would give you a tabled summarization of the permitted uses. So it looks like from a residential standpoint, not much would change. Even in public and civic, I think a cultural center it looks like everything stays the same. In commercial, a couple of items change in the BP1 district from being permitted to a conditional use. A couple items, either they change from either being permitted to a conditional use or it becomes a permitted use in the industrial categories. Mostly for low and moderate impact.
Yes.
Yeah, point on that one is when we adopted the brand new zoning code and the council took an evaluation and the plan commission took an evaluation of all the properties in our business parks, the industrial zoning classification left open a lot of stuff wide open, and our business park just wasn't developed that way. That was the reason why we took away 3 industrial zoning districts, created 1 more business park zoning district, which had less manufacturing components in it, less heavy of the manufacturing. Think of the Lot and Foundry and Durr and those other types of heavy manufacturing users. Those were kind of pulled into 1 zoning district, and then we created several Business Park 1, Business Park 2 zoning districts, and that's around I guess you'd say where the market is going from a trucking and transportation and light manufacturing standpoint. So the Business Park 1 and Business Park 2 are pretty much the same uses. It's just a matter of there's opportunities for conditional use in the Business Park 2, but again, that requires all separate public hearings, separate meetings, separate notifications, all those, and that's not what's being discussed at this time. It's permitted use.
Thank you. Other questions or comments on the item as we have before us? And by the way, we'll vote in a second, but this goes to council?
Rezoning would go to council.
Okay, so this will go to council, so everyone's aware of that. That said, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your comments. Item 8. I see the gauges back there too. Hi. Item 8. Consideration and possible action for a new 12-foot wide underground easement created by the City of De Pere for Wisconsin Public Service on the east central side of 335 South Broadway Street, parcels ED-275.
Okay. This is a simple 12-foot wide easement request, basically in the back parking lot of our City Hall, Fire Department, Police Department area that connects the Wisconsin Street to our cell tower that is existing on the property. You can see the red line right here shows approximately where that 12-foot easement would be placed. It is an underground easement, but it would prohibit the owners of this property, being the city, from being able to build on or near that easement area. Planning staff recommends approval subject to the conditions you see in your report.
Thank you. Questions or comments?
I'll make a motion for approval.
I'll second.
Go ahead.
Motion, you have the motion by Mark, seconded by Alderperson Gantz. Discussion or comments? That darn city, we're going to give them approval, you guys think, or what? That said, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 9, discussion about site plans received since the August 2024 Plan Commission meeting and review of the status of recently approved development projects. Anyone have anything, or Peter, you want to say anything?
Aside from September is a tremendously busy month for site plans. Thank you, Kelly, for keeping up with bringing them all in because they do get submitted online by a digital submittal now. You'll notice that this list doesn't look like it's changed very much, but if you look at where all of the names are, and they have shifted it around a significant amount since you last looked at this a month ago.
Oh, like names are as far as, developer revising
it looks-
plans, et cetera, et cetera. Okay.
Yeah, it looks like we have about 4 projects that are under review. That's only because there's about 4 more sitting on my desk that I have not added to this list.
Is one of those a club car wash?
So you're busy.
Car wash in De Pere?
Yes.
And that's noted. Any questions or comments while we're here in this little area? Anything jump out at y'all?
That was just nice.
Last time
to
we had a
see.
lot of comments.
It was just nice to see, was it 5 that were completed?
I believe I see
list?
5, yes.
Yeah, so,
Yes, you are correct.
Yeah, Caribou's open.
Yeah.
that's right.
I'm sure they're even on there anymore.
They are.
They are.
They still on?
They're under recently approved.
Yep.
Well, they should be recently completed, should they not? But that's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep up.
Right.
Anything else we have? Peter, Dan, anything else you want to add on this while we're here? All right, thank you. Up next, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by me, seconded by Mark. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We're officially adjourned. Thank you, everybody.